Well, what is going on, Agape City? It is Thursday, which means it's Love Day, which means this is the time that we open up this book and look for the word that is our namesake, agape. Now, when you open your English Bible, you're not going to see the word A-G-A-P-E with a little thing over the E. You're going to see it written in English, and the word agape in English means love. And so each Thursday we jump on here. If you missed any of these, definitely go back in the channel, watch the other ones up to this point, because it's staggering how often this word agape shows up in our New Testament of our Bible, because this is one of the central tenets of who God is, and what Jesus came to do. In fact, the verse I have for you today comes directly from Jesus. This is from the Sermon on the Mount. This is Jesus preaching to over 5,000 people. This is what the longest recorded sermon we have of Jesus' preaching. And he talks about a myriad of topics. But in verse 43, Jesus starts talking about this topic of love. And it's interesting what he says. He says this: "You have heard it that it was said, 'Love your neighbor and hate your enemy.' But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven." Now, we oftentimes read that verse, love your enemies, and we just stop there. And then we oftentimes think, love your enemies just means like, be nice to, enemies or whatever. But read a little further. It says, love your enemies. And why should you love your enemies? So that you may be children of your Father in heaven. We just experienced Easter. We just experienced remembering the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. And we always celebrate the resurrection. But don't fast forward past the death. Jesus, who is the Son to the Father, he is a child of the Father, when he was being arrested by the soldiers, told Peter, do not pick up the sword, because if you live by the sword, you will die by the sword. And when he was being crucified, he looked at the people and said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. You want to talk about loving your enemies because you're a child of the Father? Jesus encapsulated that fully in his life on this earth, and definitely on his death on the cross. And then he calls you and I to be followers of him. And so he says, will you love your enemy? And then someone cuts us off on the road and we start giving them hand gestures, or someone, has a different political view and we start, yelling at them. And they're not even harming us physically. They just have a different idea than us ideologically. I think Jesus means this when he says, love your enemies. Like, absolutely, there's going to be people who think differently than you, and people who are maybe even objectively wrong in the way that they're thinking. But hating them just brings about more evil in this world. At some point, we have to believe that evil was conquered on the cross. It's already conquered. The serpent's head has already been crushed. It will not prevail. So us adding more evil to this world, A, is futile because evil will ultimately be conquered. And two, it's just prolonging what's inevitable, that evil already lost. So for you and I, who are children of God, we don't have to add to the evil. We get to expound on the love, because love is what led Jesus to and through that cross, to face his enemies and to love them and give them a way for salvation, for all who call upon the name of Jesus can be saved. The question is, can you and I love like that today? This is hard stuff, but if we could do it, this is life-changing for you and for the person who experiences your love. Go get them today.